I think there's two things people need to understand. Everything is variable. You can have more energy, you can have less energy. You can be more or less of something. All right? And that goes with consciousness. I don't think having a soul is a set thing. I think the idea of soul is actually the amount of consciousness that you have. I think some people have more consciousness, some people have less consciousness. And the amount of consciousness you have is reliant upon how much consciousness you make room for in yourself, in your vessel, in your human self. And that means depending upon your thoughts, your actions, and your emotions. That's the triangle of the body, of the earth, your connection to the earth. Depending upon that, you can have more or less consciousness. And that essentially means you have more or less soul. So I think there's essentially people walking the earth that have almost no soul because they've given up their consciousness. They have other people running their lives for them. They submit their self to other beings, other people maybe. They could just simply submit themselves to groupthink, to the group consciousness, societal norms, or maybe they submit themselves to some dark demonic spirits, or they submit themselves to what they think are light spirits. But either way, they're giving up their consciousness to something else. So, and I just said giving up your consciousness is possible to giving up your consciousness to a light spirit, so I think that's possible too. Yeah. Honestly, think about it. Consciousness is variable, and you don't have a set amount of soul. The soul is not a stagnant thing where you're born with a soul and you have a soul and you can sell it to the devil or you can keep it. No. You can give away pieces of it to spirits and people. Clearly, you can give away pieces of your consciousness to people if you subscribe to this way of thinking or that way of thinking. You're sectioning off pieces of your mind, which is basically your consciousness in a sense, to a way of thinking. Therefore, you're giving up your soul to a way of thinking. Now, whether that thing you're giving it up to is benevolent or not, do you really know? If you're going to give it up to them, you better know if that source is benevolent or not. I think, achieving nirvana in in the Buddhist thought is where you achieve a state of being where you basically leave your consciousness, you give up your consciousness back to God. So you're giving up your consciousness back to God. What's it going to do? It's going to go back into the big pool of consciousness that is God, and then it's going to get shot right back, probably to Earth. Think of God, and he sections off a certain amount of his consciousness to be on Earth. If you achieve nirvana, Nirvana is a state of being where you give up all your desires of earthly pleasure and all your pains and anything that connects you to the earth. You give all that up, and you supposedly achieve this beautiful state of being, and then part of it is also dying, where you stop even to have a desire to live, you know? So, if you're doing that, you're giving up your soul, your consciousness, which is what I'm saying, to a benevolent deity, which is God, which is Source, which is the source of all life and death and everything that exists that we know of. And if you give it up to them, you give it up to Him, that one organism, you're giving it up to something that's probably going to take that energy and put it into something else here on Earth. It's not like you give up that energy and then it just goes nowhere. That consciousness, that soul, is going to go somewhere else. So whether you decide to have kids or not, or whether you decide to continue on your lineage or whatever, or continue on living, continue on affecting the earth, continue on being a soul on this earth that I believe God or spirits live through or take from. If you give up on this earth, then somebody else is going to take that fucking spot. If you don't want it, somebody else is going to take that fucking spot. That's all I know. And I'm pretty sure about that. So, the idea of what I started to say was everything is variable. And the second part is everything is about associations. Everything is relative. Okay? You don't understand dark without light. You're not going to understand wealth without poverty. You're not going to be able to appreciate what it's like to rest if you don't know what it's like to work your ass off, you know? So I can get into that in another video, but yeah, the most important thing that I'm trying to say here is people think that soul is a thing and it's just what it is. Everybody has one, and it's very simple. I think, first of all, there's a lot of people on earth that barely have a soul. They've given up most of their consciousness, which I'm saying soul and consciousness are the same thing. They've given up most of their consciousness to something or someone else, whatever you want to call it. And second of all, the people that do have their soul, you can have more of a soul. You can gain consciousness, which I believe is like gaining soul power. You gain soul power by gaining consciousness. And with it comes more responsibility. The more knowledge you have of spiritual matters, the more responsibility you have, because it is what it is. The more knowledge you have of things, the more responsibility that it carries. So, yeah, that's enough information for one video. So, I think I'm actually probably gonna go to bed now. So yeah, signing out. Peace and love.